Okay.
Motion detected at your front door.
Hello?
Oh, hi, Florence. This is Dr. Saraf. How are you?
Doctor who?
Saraf from the Elite Daycare Center.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
Yeah, I was talking to Lisa yesterday, and she said that you were at the center.
Yeah, I'm back at the center.
Uh-huh. Yeah, in the past I have called you and never got any message from you. So how are you doing?
I'm okay.
Uh-huh. So you are okay, you are doing well, and you are keeping yourself safe.
Yeah, I'm staying safe. I got the shot and all of that too.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
When did you get the shot?
I got it through this program. They did it at the center.
Oh, at the center. Uh-huh, that's
Yeah.
good. Which one did you get it?
I got the Johnson and Johnson.
Okay, J and J. Yeah, they were going to give you another shot too, they were saying.
No, I ain't messing with them.
Oh yeah, you okay with this one?
Yeah, I'm okay. And the only thing it did was make me go to sleep when I came home.
I know. Yeah. So how was the center when you went there for the first time after 1.5 years?
It was okay. It was nice seeing everybody.
Uh-huh. And you saw Lisa?
Yeah, I saw her Friday.
Oh, saw her Friday. Uh-huh. So
Which
you
one? It's two Lisas there.
and Lisa Lewis.
Oh yeah, I saw her. We had up to the 7-Eleven.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Because she was
Why
telling
you coming back to the center?
no, they are not allowing us to go.
Oh,
Yeah. So you are doing all right with your medical needs?
well, I guess. I don't know.
What happened?
It's just that, like, I don't know. I don't even know how to explain it.
No, do you have any high blood pressure,
Oh,
cholesterol?
no, I don't have none of that. No,
Mm-hmm.
no,
Uh-huh. Any kind of heart problem?
no.
Oh, that's good. So, so maybe
I
something.
gained a little weight. That's about it.
Uh-huh. So, yeah, that's what happened when you're 1.5 months, a year, you're locked up in your house, and you do nothing but eat
Yeah,
and
yeah,
talk.
right. But now I'm trying to be on this diet. I only eat like once a day,
Oh, that's
and I
good.
eat like salad and
Mm,
salads.
that's good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, and I have a baked turkey, like baked turkey breast, and that's it. And that's all I eat for dinner or whatever.
Oh, that's good. Baked turkey is good.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
and that's what I get at the center too. I just get the same thing every day:
oh, that's good.
the
You will.
baked chicken and the salad.
Uh-huh. Do you do any kind of exercise?
I try to, but my leg won't let me because I might be going in the hospital to have hip replacement.
Oh, what happened?
I was in a car accident before I moved down here. I was living in Pennsylvania.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
correction.
So they
So,
said I need a hip replacement.
uh-huh. When are you going for that?
I don't know. I got a appointment on the 21st to get X-rays and an MRI done on it on my leg and hip,
Uh-huh.
and then she's gonna go from there.
I hope everything comes out all right. You're not able
Hmm.
to walk?
I can walk or whatever, but it's just like sometimes I be in pain when I be walking.
Ah.
Mhm.
Mm,
So that's why I need to lose some weight because I think I got too much weight. She said I'm putting too much weight on that leg.
yeah, that part of that. So, but I'm glad that you have taken care of your diet. That's important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I try.
So your hip is the left one or the right one or both?
It's the right one.
Right
You
one.
couldn't tell when you was there the last time when I told you my leg was hurting when I was sitting down in that chair.
Yeah, you're right about that. And you were talking some of the other stuff. You're living with your grandmother.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, I remember that. Yeah. So, uh,
I still haven't been sleeping, even though you told me to get them gummy bear things. I forgot what's the name. It begins with an M, and
uh-huh.
it's not working.
Oh, but you know what you do when you are.
That's why I stay up.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I go to sleep, I think about it.
Yeah, you know what you can do? Whenever you start thinking of that, you start counting. Okay, 100 to 1 reverse backward, like 100, 99, 90, 98, 97, 96, 95, 94.
Hello? Can you call me back?
Okay,
Okay.
all right,
What?
Florence.
Monday? You can call me back tomorrow.
Okay, you will be
I get off the program like 2:30.
2:30, and you will have your cell phone.
Yeah, I have my cell phone with me all the time.
Okay, well, I'll call you then tomorrow, Florence.
What time?
Around 3 o'clock or so.
Okay, okay, I'll be home. I'll be getting home about that time. That's good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Good to talk to you, Florence.
You too.
Uh-huh. Bye bye.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm. Oh, hi, Dolly. Good evening. This is Dr. Saraf from Elite Daycare Center.
Yes,
Yeah, I was talking to Jeannie, the social worker,
yes.
and she was telling me that you are interested to talk to me.
Yeah.
She was telling me about your brother who got murdered, isn't it?
My son. That was my son.
Oh, son, yeah, uh-huh.
Yeah, my son, and then now my cousin, his son got killed at ShopRite in Willenboro, and we got a funeral on Friday for that. It's just so devastating.
I know it is, I'm so sorry to hear that.
It's too much. It's too much, and I just don't know what to do.
I know.
You know,
How old was your son?
34.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
My only son.
Mhm.
They shot at him 12 times at the car, but he took 3 of the bullets.
Oh my God, so sorry to hear that. And your cousin's daughter also got shot?
Yeah, I got 2 daughters. I got one down south and one in New York, and she's a principal, but she's not taking it too good right now. She's still in her, you know.
So where she is in Brooklyn?
Manhattan.
Man, what happened to her?
That's his sister.
Oh, that's cousin's sister. Uh-huh.
Yeah, she's not taking it too well right now. She's still in her, Yeah. Sometimes I go up and sometimes I go down.
I know it's bad. Really.
Yeah, then gotta go right back to another person. You know what I'm saying? It's too much for me.
I know you're right. So are you talking to your friends about it?
No, I had locked myself in for a while, and I came back. I came out. I went to the center.
Uh-huh. Yeah, she was telling me. Gina was telling me that you did come to center, and she said that I better call her.
To get out the house. I can't stay in this house too long.
I know. Get out of the house. But I'm glad that you are getting out. Do you live by yourself?
Yes, I do.
Mm-hmm. So do you have?
Sometimes I'll go downstairs in the rec room,
Mm-hmm.
for a little while, and or I might play a little bingo once in a little while.
Mm-hmm.
Then I gotta come right back up to this darkness.
I know. There is another person. I don't know. Lisa Lewis. Does she live in your?
Who?
Lisa Lewis.
No.
Uh-huh.
No.
Because she also live in a place where and they have a community hall. They have some meetings.
Well, I'm in Hamilton.
Oh, you're in Hamilton.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
On Clarkton, I'm out in Clarkton Road.
Oh, Clarkton Road. Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you? I know there's not too much to do there,
Yeah, ain't too much nothing going on now. And they still with the epidemic.
So how do you spend your day?
Well, I talk to family members on the phone sometimes, and or I might just catch the bus and go to ShopRite just to get out the house.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm really going to the center 3 days a week.
That's very good.
Yeah.
At least you are out. Do you go there or they come and pick you up?
They pick me up.
That's good.
And then I'm having a little problem with my hip because I got a lot of. They said I got 100% arthritis in my hip, but I'm trying to lose the weight so that I can get the surgery. Yeah.
So are you doing anything about the weight?
The what?
Are you taking any kind of precautions to lose the weight?
I just do the I can. Slow up the eat the brown bread, no rice, and stuff like that.
Okay, no rice,
Some days,
no.
some days I don't eat at all. Some days I don't feel like eating nothing.
Yeah. Do you eat meat?
Maybe fish.
No, good. Fish, turkey, you can have.
Yeah, love. Baked, just a number baked.
Yeah, baked one. That's better.
Yeah, and I use that vegetarian hamburger. I love that.
Oh,
It's got a lot of vegetables in it.
yeah. And you eat the buns on that?
No.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how was your sleep?
Well, the doctor gave me sleeping pills. Yeah. And then gave me nerve pills too. Yeah.
Are you taking any other medications?
Blood pressure pills.
And that's the only thing?
No, and I take pain pills for my hip.
Okay. Okay.
And otherwise, I just sit, watch TV, or mess around and rearrange my apartment. Keep busy.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad that you're doing it. Do you go to church?
I was, but it's not open yet.
But they usually have services on the TV.
Oh, I watch that sometimes. I watch that, and that come on in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Usually on.
Yeah, I watch that in the morning.
Okay. So when you go to work, do you take your cell with you?
Do I what?
Do you take your cell phone with you?
Yes, I take my cell phone with me all the time.
Okay. So I will be calling you there too,
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you coming back to the center?
Well, they haven't allowed us to come there yet,
Not yet, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when they allow us, I will be seeing you there,
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you for calling me.
Yeah, I'm gonna call you again,
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, you take care, Dolly, and please, if you see social worker Jeannie, tell her I called you and talked to you.
Okay, I will.
I will appreciate, Dolly.
Bye now.
Bye. Take care.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
What's up?
Hey, what's that? Give me some therapy.
Hey,
How are you doing?
pretty good. When my phone rang, I thought it was a beautiful woman, but it's a handsome doctor.
Oh man, I'm sorry. I disappointed you.
No, but it could have been an ugly doctor.
Oh yeah. So how things are going on with you?
Yeah, things okay. Yeah. I've been having a little tightness in my shoulder, both my shoulders and my wrist and my elbow, and my fingers. When you bend the fingers. In the joints, yeah.
Yeah. Did you see a doctor about that?
Nah, because I got to see the same doctor that took care of my knees. So I guess I'll call him tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how long you have been having this pain?
Well, about a few days.
A few days. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you're taking care of this earlier,
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And you are able to walk now?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. That's good. At
I
least,
just been having a little trouble out of my, well, the main knee the knee that was worse, I have a little trouble out of that knee from time to time, but the other knee,
mm-hmm.
it'd be pretty good.
Yeah. When you talk to this doctor tomorrow, you tell him all this kind of things.
Yeah.
Mm. So one thing is good that you are able to walk.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so you can chase around those women, in the pharmacy.
Yeah, I don't need no cane or that.
Yeah. Did you go to the center?
I ain't going. I was supposed to go last week.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but I didn't go.
Okay.
I
Whenever
guess
you,
I
Mhm.
guess I go one day this week maybe.
Yeah. But you have to feel comfortable. You already got the vaccine and all that.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. So you have to just feel, uh, comfortable with that.
Yeah, because everybody, they won't let you back in the program unless you got the card that.
Yeah. Card.
And
Mm-hmm.
so is it time for you to take the third dose?
No, they're not saying because I took the Madeira. They are not asking about it. I think that they're
Now,
going
Moderna was one or two.
two.
Yeah, because that's the one I had too.
That's good. So you don't have to worry about it.
Uh,
Yeah. Now you know what you can do. Did you take the flu shot?
I'm trying to remember.
No, I think that you should go to the pharmacy and get the flu shot.
Because I know my sister knows because she takes me. I think we got it a while ago, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, you talk to her. If not, then you go and get the flu shots.
Yeah, because I had the flu before. Ooh, it was
Mm-hmm.
rough.
Yeah. So I think that you talk to your sister.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So what are you preparing your meal or dinner or what are you doing now?
Well, I give them 3 days a week.
Uh-huh.
Before, when it first closed down, it was 5 days a week. Now they give it 3 days a week.
Or 3 days a week. That's good.
Because they want you to come in. I guess they figure if we do 3 days a week, boom, then 2 days they might come. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Well, you have to feel comfortable before you go there. You have to feel comfortable going there.
Yeah.
Mm. So, so you are with your sister or you're by yourself?
Well, in my house right now,
Mm-hmm.
I think I got a nephew on the second floor, and I got another nephew here. It's like two. I think they say slipped out, but there was me and two others.
Okay. Well, that's good. I'm glad that you're
And they all
living.
got
Just started the meeting.
Hey, Dr. Makita, how are you doing?
Okay, how are you?
Doing great, thank you.
Are you driving?
No, I just parked my car.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I said, wow, in California, they do things differently, looks like.
We actually just got done with a volunteer. We give out meals, 2,000 meals every Sunday.
Oh,
So we just
wow.
got done. Yeah. So we started this during the pandemic, May 2020.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's great. So you're going in to start the meeting now?
Yes. I'm gonna allow people to come in and start admitting people in the next few minutes.
Okay, your voice is very garbled. Is that because you're in the car?
Let me see.
And even your video is choppy.
Is this better? Is this better?
It's a little better. But so you're going to sit in the car and do the meeting?
Yeah, I'm gonna sit over here. I'll introduce you, and then as you get started, and then I'll drive home. I'm 10 minutes away from home. I just want to get you started, and then I'll go home, and then I'll finish the rest from there.
Oh, so you will join the meeting later? Okay.
No, I'm gonna be here. I'm gonna be on the phone as well.
Oh, I see. Then you will go back and where there's Wi-Fi, it'll be a little easier then.
Yeah, exactly.
So if there's any issues, you have other team members helping out.
Yeah, we do have other team members coming in.
Yeah, your video is frozen now.
Yeah, it could be my service.
Where are you in California?
I'm in LA.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you are a PhD in engineering?
Yeah, I have a PhD in environmental engineering.
Okay. I know you quit all that and you went on a different path totally.
Yes. Wait, how did you know that?
I read your thing you sent. I clicked on your name and I saw your website.
Oh, I got you. Yeah.
Yeah. I saw your hip moves. There was a GIF file about you were dancing with somebody.
Oh, yes, my wife.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So you are based in California. This Jaina is also based in California?
Jaina is national. So they're all across America, USA and Canada, both.
Well, I know we have a big temple not far from where I am at.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest centers. Them and LA is the two biggest centers.
They built there about 10 years ago, I think 8 or 10 years ago. 8 years ago.
Okay.
One in New Jersey.
Right. Yeah, that's a big one. There are a lot of Jains in New Jersey.
Okay. So
no, that is fine. Okay, that's
Motion detected at your
I see some familiar faces. Hi, Mohan.
Hi, Vasu.
Hey, how are you?
This morning you have been confusing the hell out of me.
I know. I'm really sorry. I had plans in the evening, but I then at 2 o'clock, I couldn't join the meeting. I contacted the team and they told me it's actually 2 p.m. Pacific time. So they kind of messed up things.
As long as it was not IST.
No, it was not IST. Yeah. So I had to change things so I can be here at 5 o'clock Eastern time. So
It's okay. That happens.
Yeah. I think the team is about to start. I think they're running a few minutes behind because they just finished the volunteering work at the temple.
Okay. So I'll mute and stop the video, okay?
Thank you, everyone, for joining in. This is Dr. Gandhi with the Global Compassion Organization. As we have more people joining in, we are going to admit them. And in the next couple minutes, we'll allow a few more people to join in and get started. Thank you so much for your patience. And we're grateful that everyone's here today to listen to Dr. Makita. He has a very in-depth knowledge of this issue, and we're gonna be talking a lot today. So thank you so much for being here. We'll be starting.
Varun, can I suggest that you mute everybody as when you start? Because I can hear some sounds at some.
Yes. 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 So I request that everyone, also if you're just joining in, please mute yourself. So we can get this started.
I can hear the conversations. So can you mute everybody except me or whoever is going to talk at this point, Varun?
Yeah.
Yes, we can mute people.
Yeah, you might want to mute remotely everybody. So that way you'll have, everybody can hear clearly then.
Yeah. All right. I think that's it's getting better. Give it 1 more minute. All right, let's get started.
Vasu, you are.
Hello? Varun, you were saying something, but we couldn't hear you. I think you were on mute.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Did the introduction come through or?
No. In fact, even I was on mute. I was trying to tell you, and then I realized even I'm on mute. So you might want to
Oh my God.
let me know when you want me
Okay.
to start. So,
Okay, I'm gonna do the introduction again. So, today we have Dr. Makija. He's a psychiatrist in private practice based in New Jersey. He's a founder and president of SAMHIN, a nonprofit organization devoted to addressing a broad range of mental health needs of the South Asians in the U.S. He's also a distinguished life fellow of the American Psychiatric Association and past president of New Jersey Psychiatric Association. He served on the Union County Mental Health Board for 6 years and was also the chair of the board for 2 years. Thank you so much, Dr. Vasudev Makija, for joining us. Please go ahead and take it away.
okay, thank you, Varun. So, Dr. Gandhi has asked me to address a few, answer a few questions actually, and mostly related to the stigma in our community, the South Asian community, why we have stigma, why does it exist, what is stigma, and what is the impact of stigma on our lives, and what can be done about it, and any available resources that I can provide. You know, mental illness does not recognize boundaries, languages, cultures, or nationalities. When it appears, it is a source of much pain, suffering, and distress to everyone involved. Stigma is actually a Greek word meaning a disgrace. Emotional problems and any deviation from what is considered normal behavior is seen as a sign of disgrace. And no one wants any part of that. Mental illness is often seen as a stain, a disgrace, or what in Hindi we call a dhabba. To accept mental illness would amount to being accepted in society with disdain. And to us, that is not acceptable. There is tremendous shame and stigma associated with disdain and this mental illness. It makes us feel somehow that we are defective. Stigma can be associated with some physical conditions also, but the degree to which it is associated with mental illness is much greater and much more pervasive. Stigma of mental illness is universal. It exists in every society and country. The degree and nuances vary. I will address some of the nuances in the South Asian community. It is a significant barrier to help-seeking behavior. This results in not seeking help or significant delays in seeking help. This causes prolonged suffering for the mentally ill and their families. The illness progresses, and as it progresses, it gets harder to treat, and it takes longer to treat. Besides suffering, it causes inability to function. People lose their jobs and go on disability. Marriages are affected, families are affected, and there might be tragic consequences like suicides or aggressive behavior. There are many other barriers to mental health care, but today we will focus on just stigma. The concept of izzat or honor is very paramount to those that are raised in our culture. It's linked to the concept of sharam or shame. In fact, the two are so inseparable that the Hindi word lajja has both shame and dishonor in its list of meanings. Now, to the question, why there is stigma? What causes stigma? In our community, we are very conscious of our image in our society. Often there is fear and shame of people finding out about the mental illness. We worry that their reactions will tarnish our image in our neighborhood or in our society. What will people say? What will they think of us? Who will marry our son or daughter? These questions then drive our flawed decisions and actions. Now, one of the significant reasons that drives the stigma is our lack of understanding of mental illness. This is often referred to as mental health literacy. In many countries, including the developed Western countries, mentally ill were kept locked up, away from society, and sometimes and often even chained so they could not escape. Mental illness was poorly understood and worse, misunderstood. It was thought to be work of devil, or other bizarre explanations were offered. Today, the conditions for the mentally ill have improved in the Western society, and even in developing countries like India as well, especially in the major cities. But the harsh treatment of the mentally ill continue in remote areas and small towns. Much work is needed to improve our understanding of mental illness and acceptance of mental illness in our lives. In the current times in this country, especially within our community, the poor mental health literacy is not limited to the uneducated. It cuts across all socioeconomic backgrounds. An individual can be an experienced physician, be highly educated and have a PhD, yet may have a poor understanding of the mental illness and available treatments. This explains why when a high school or a college youth approaches his or her parent, educated parent, that they are experiencing anxiety or depression or other form of psychological distress, they are not taken seriously. They are told they should just focus on their studies, work hard, be successful, and problems will go away. Sadly, they may even discourage seeking psychiatric treatment. Often, I hear this from parents of young adults. Oh, he just needs to work harder to find a job. He needs to go out more and make some friends and he'll be fine. There is this misinformed belief that with just love and advice, the person will come out of the mental illness. Yes, the love and advice of the family is important, but not enough. And you have heard about this, that little knowledge is a dangerous thing. When people see a psychological or behavioral symptom in their loved one, they go on Google, become experts, and have come up with strong opinions. Those opinions drive their decisions about what steps need to be taken next. Now, sometimes they may be on the target and in the right direction, and other times they are not. The problem is not that they get information on Google. Nothing wrong with that. But the problem is not verifying that information with more authentic and reliable sources and being open to other possibilities. The understanding and the perception of the information is also often influenced by the preconceived notions and their inner biases about mental illness. And stigma plays a big role here. Attitudes about mental illness also have a strong impact and relationship with stigma. Often, acknowledging mental illness can be very distressing. There are many understandable reasons for this distress upon seeing a loved one suffering with mental illness. It is very painful. But the distress from seeing mental illness as a disgrace can become a major hindrance, and acknowledgement is avoided. They stay clear of admitting that there is mental illness, that it even exists in the loved one, and care is avoided. There's delays in care. Seeking help in their perception may signify that something is seriously wrong. In other words, the problem and its consequences are magnified in their minds. They are unable to see that there are successful treatments out there. Just like someone who is asked to see a physician for an evaluation for a physical condition, refuses to do so for fear that they might find that they have a cancer or a heart attack. They rather explain those symptoms with some other acceptable causes and delay treatment, and they may lose precious time in that. I often hear this from fellow Indians who have immigrated to this country. Oh, back home, we never saw mental illness. We never saw people having mental problems. But nothing can be further from the truth. Problems of mental illness have always existed, but they were not seen as illnesses, but rather as phenomena like bhoot pret, spirits, or other bizarre explanations are offered. It has always existed in our society, but there was a denial at a society level, and different explanations were offered. They mocked the person with mental illness. I've personally seen this, and I've also personally witnessed people throwing stones at a mentally ill person when I was growing up in Mumbai. In fact, talking about history, there is a description in our scriptures like Ramayana and Mahabharata of what today will be considered as mental illness, like depression, anxiety, or severe jealousy. It is often socially acceptable for people to talk about physical problems. It is easy for us to accept the idea of physical problems, but not mental problems. People don't hesitate to tell others about their pain in the leg or a headache or high blood pressure. But these same people will find it very difficult to admit to themselves or to tell anyone, even their close family or their own personal physician, when they experience depression, anxiety, or irrational fears of germs, compulsive rituals or phobias, or difficulty getting along with others, or other psychological problems. Accepting emotional problems somehow is equated to admission of defeat and weakness in our society. It is associated with tremendous shame. As one author, Dr. Mark Comrade, said in his book, You Need Help, with physical problems, we can talk about illnesses, sickness, or disease. But when it comes to mental lives, other words creep in, even if they are not said out loud. And many of these are used as adjectives: weakness, stupidity, cowardice, weird, crazy, insane, or in Hindi we call pagal, dimag kharab ho gaya. Such attitudes are very prevalent in our community. Some South Asians become very cocky and are reluctant to seek help, saying that, oh, I know what the psychiatrist or psychologist or therapist is going to do or say. So what's the point? I mean, this may not be limited to South Asians, but I think it's more prevalent in our community. I think this is also a product of ignorance about mental illness, and often even associated with the stigma. They may not want to see a mental health professional because they are afraid that they'll be labeled as being crazy. And mental health is often not a big major priority in our community. You know, people can spend lavishly on expensive vacations and birthday parties. But when it comes to mental health, it's very difficult to spend. That's not a priority. An underlying stigma, and of course, the ignorance may be a part of the reason for this. Mental illness is often perceived as a product of mental weakness or a result of personal failure. And some Hindus may have another challenge resulting from inaccurately perceived notion of karma and adopt a very passive, fatalistic attitude. Oh, it's going to happen anyway, so what's the point? We are destined to suffer. For some, asking for help would mean shattering the image in our community and exposing our weaknesses. I've heard parents of adult children with mental illness say, oh, all he needs is just positive encouragement, boost his self-esteem, love. This is seen as alternative to seeking psychiatric treatment in the form of psychotherapy and medication. Yes, love and encouragement are essential. They are very important, but they cannot replace the psychiatric treatment. Let me now turn to talking about many myths and misunderstandings about mental illness and available treatments and how that is related and its relationship to stigma. Stigma actually fuels and perpetuates these myths about mental illness. One is that mental illness is not a real illness. Stigma and ignorance fuels this belief that mental illness is not even a legitimate illness. And sadly, I've heard this from some experienced physicians practicing for over 25 years in this country. Strong personal beliefs and opinions result in people ignoring science completely. And as we are seeing currently when it comes to COVID-19 vaccines during the current pandemic, bizarre and inaccurate explanations are given by families to explain mentally ill person's behavior, thought disturbance, moods. This helps them to avoid facing the reality of mental illness. Facing that would mean accepting defeat, weakness, or stain, or dhabba. Who would want that? I have known instances where families have been totally against prescriptions of antipsychotic medications, even when the person is psychotic. Now, let me just tell you what psychotic is. A psychosis is a form of condition which can be associated with different psychiatric disorders. And in that, the person loses touch with the reality. They may have hallucinations, seeing things that are not there, hearing voices that when nobody is present, or have these firm beliefs that are not rational, and you cannot argue them out of those beliefs. You cannot reason with them. Some of my colleagues have shared their frustrating experiences about this. The well-meaning families insist that their loved one's problem is only severe anxiety, even when the professional has identified symptoms of psychosis. And even when the person who's admitted to the hospital has been referred from the community, for example, in the school, who teachers have noticed that the person was not making sense and was having psychotic experiences. This results in prolongation of the suffering and delays in treatment. Taking antipsychotic medication is equated with serious mental illness, and it can be, serious illness for which antipsychotic is needed. Accepting the idea of a serious illness can be frightening, and attempts are made to avoid the acceptance. I can understand it is frightening, it's painful, but not accepting the idea of proper treatment has worse consequences. There is, in fact, even a great reluctance to accept psychiatric medications, even when the person does not experience any side effects. And even when it has helped the symptoms. Why? They don't want to be dependent on medications or seeing somebody for therapy. They feel they should be able to solve the problems on their own without relying on that treatment. We believe we should be strong enough to be able to solve our problems on our own. Taking medications equate with weakness and lack of willpower. These are very flawed ways of thinking, and it is ingrained in our culture. This is not a strong consideration when it comes to diabetes or blood pressure, which require treatment for life typically. We have to learn to challenge our own biases about psychiatric treatments. Another thing, people misperceive medications, psychiatric medicine, as being very addictive. I mean, that may be true with the small number of medications that they are addictive, but most are not. But thinking that they're all addictive, they avoid it and hence deprive themselves of proper treatments. Another belief is that medications destroy the brain. They alter personalities. They affect the brain and damage the brain. These are all flawed perceptions born out of lack of understanding of mental illness and the treatments. Or they might say there is no cure for mental illness, so what's the point? Well, actually, let me tell you, there is cure for very few illnesses in medicine. Most conditions are managed, whether it's diabetes, blood pressure, lupus, multiple sclerosis, they are managed. There is no cure. There are few things that can be cured. And similarly, psychiatric condition also is treatable, even if not cured. People may not know that according to the National Institute of Mental Health, treatment success rates for psychiatric disorders are pretty high. For example, for depression is 85% success rate. For bipolar disorder and panic disorder is 80%. And for schizophrenia, which is a severe illness, it's 75%. And those are not bad numbers. Those odds are much better than many other conditions in medicine. Now, let me turn to something else, which is another major hurdle in South Asian community and other Asian and minority communities. In our community, like other Asian communities, we believe that we are above such problems, that there is a pressure for us to follow this model minority myth that we are perfect, that problems like these, mental illness or addiction, domestic violence, happens only in those Americans out there, not in our families, not to us. There is an intense denial. We take great pride in being very successful minority community. And we have reason to feel that, yes, we are successful, and that is good. But we forget that has nothing to do with existence or non-existence of mental illness. Success does not provide immunity from mental illness. Here is another thing. Stigma is so strong that we will go to great lengths to avoid conventional consultation and treatment, because not getting such consultation aligns with our belief that it is not a serious problem. Instead, we seek natural remedies like Ayurveda, herbs, homeopathy, yoga, meditation, breathing exercises, and so on. Even when there is a lack of scientific evidence for such measures in the treatment of the particular mental disorder, these are pursued. These valuable strategies and interventions certainly have a place in our society and provide lots of benefits to countless people all over the world. I personally practice these, and I even recommend these to my patients. The problem is not the interventions or the strategies. The problem is when such practices replace conventional diagnosis and treatment, and these are followed blindly without proper understanding of the underlying mental problem. The science is totally sidestepped, as you see happening with the anti-vaxxers in the pandemic. Needless to say, this causes much delay in seeking proper treatment. Normally, when you go to a doctor, you need a good evaluation and a diagnosis need to be established, and then treatment is recommended. The problem with people's attitudes about alternate medicine is that recommendations for interventions are made with firm conviction after just hearing one or two symptoms, and sometimes not even hearing about a symptom. Often recommendations are made by well-meaning individuals who are not even experts in the field. How many messages of magical cures we receive every day on WhatsApp? I mean, it's almost comical, some of the messages that I read. I mean, while the interventions are mostly harmless, but valuable time is lost delaying proper diagnosis and the underlying treatment of the mental illness. And you see this even in those who are highly educated and even in physicians. Now, let me turn to one more important point about the relationship between religious beliefs, spirituality, stigma, and mental illness. Spirituality and religion are an integral part of our lives. They play a vital, important role in providing us with solace, support, and strength. It helps us cope with adversities, including mental health issues. Research has in fact shown the benefits of spirituality in mental health. Religious places provide opportunities for doing seva, which is very helpful to people, including their mental health. Having said this, it is also important to remember that religion and spirituality should not replace getting the psychiatric care when it is indicated. It can complement it, but not replace. Some people see mental illness as resulting from lack of faith and inadequate spiritual pursuit and adherence to religion. They find it helpful to pray harder. The problem comes when prayer replaces proper help. We pray, but then we refuse to accept the help that the God is sending to us on this earth. I would like to share an incident I heard from a friend. The incident occurred in a large spiritual gathering in UK. A spiritual leader of a large religious organization from India, with the following the millions worldwide, was conducting a satsang in UK. One lady approached the leader during the satsang and complained to the leader that her husband had been beating her. The spiritual leader asked her if her husband was providing and putting food on the table. She said, yes, he was. He then told her that in that case, she had no reason to complain. He then went on to explain what the rationale was for his comment. He described to her that she had done terrible things to her husband, including beating him and starving him in her prior life. She is now paying the price for that. By paying the price, she was essentially settling her prior karmic account. Her karmic account needed to be cleared. So, in other words, my take is that her husband's beating her was giving her an opportunity to clear that account and karmic cleansing, and she should be grateful for it. I hope you are all as appalled as I was when I heard this. Further, the spiritual leader told her that whatever she had sown, she would reap. So why are you complaining? He said. He told her that she should be grateful that he was not starving her, like she had starved him in his prior life. If you sow chilies, you're not going to get mangoes, he told her. Now, here is what is even worse. I asked the person who narrated this incident to me what she thought about the response of the spiritual leader. To her, it made perfect sense. Now, that is a real tragedy, and that is what we are up against when we try to educate people about mental illness. In our community. It is such thinking that can become a barrier for a victim of domestic violence from seeking help. It can become a significant barrier in psychotherapy. How can she work on a problem when her perception is that the problem does not exist? She accepts it as a fact of life. Sometimes religious beliefs dictate how people grieve for a loss. For some, being sad is unacceptable because they are convinced that it could harm the soul of the deceased loved one. They do not accept sadness as a normal emotional reaction to a loss. Now, here's another thing, the clergies, the priests, the swamis, the imams in the South Asian religious places and organizations do not actually get formal training in mental health care. And it is not a requirement for them to preach as it is in Western churches. At some religious institutions, well-intentioned spiritual leaders believe that those who are spiritual and speak to them about their problems of life do not need psychiatric treatment. They're advised to just pray harder. In fact, I've heard of some cases. There was one case, for example, the spiritual leader actually told the family that they brought their son to him and he will take care of him and he'll be cured, and he does not need the antipsychotic medication that he was being prescribed for schizophrenia. And needless to say, it had devastating outcome. In South Asian spiritual discourse and preachings, the well-intentioned spiritual leaders may unwittingly convey misinformation about mental illness or emotional problems. And such misinformation can contribute to the barriers to help seeking. By people who take this teaching literally and seriously to heart within the context of the deep, unwavering, and blind faith in the spiritual leader or guru. I'm not suggesting abandoning your spiritual path, your guru, or your spiritual leader. You keep it. It is important for us to have that. Not at all. All I'm saying is keep that. It is important, but at the same time, do not abandon the science. I've heard some experienced swamis who are wonderful teachers on spiritual matters make insensitive and even derogatory remarks about individuals with intellectual disabilities and mental illness. I've heard some well-meaning spiritual teachers and healers say that mental illness is not really a disease. They might tell the person, just pray harder to bring the relief. Lack of understanding of mental illness and even stigma perpetuates and fuels such perceptions and comments and advice. The mentally ill person and the families follow this misguided advice that dissuades them sometimes from seeking the professional help. Not all spiritual leaders are like that, but many are. So what can we do about this stigma? Number one is the conversations, just like we are having today. And today's program is a great example of this important step. I believe openly speaking about these topics is the first step to breaking the taboo and stigma, one of the most important barriers to help seeking. Stigma is perpetuated in our society by use of words like psycho, nut, pagal, etc. when referring to the mentally ill. You can help by avoiding using such labels next time when it comes up in a conversation. Follow the signs, empower yourself with better understanding of mental illness and treatments for it. Have courage to be honest and open with your primary care physician about your mental anguish and psychological problems that you're experiencing or someone in the family. Seeking help is a sign of strength and not weakness. You must remember this. And show compassion towards those who are afflicted with mental illness and their caregivers instead of avoiding them. I've seen this time and again that when someone in the neighborhood or society has mental problem, the neighbors avoid that family completely. They in fact even tell their kids, hey, don't go there. It might be a bad influence. Remember, mental illness leaves individuals and their families feeling very, very alone. They can use that support without being judged. If you see a friend or a relative with a problem, have a dialogue and don't hesitate to tell them to consider a consultation if you think that that's what's needed. And finally, to challenge your own biases and prejudice about mental illness and available treatments. When your kids come to you next time, expressing emotional difficulties, listen and don't trivialize their symptoms or their suffering or their anguish. Help them seek treatment when needed. And most importantly, do not hinder their efforts to seek their treatments. And I'll just conclude with some resources they have been asked to give. I don't think we had the time to go through all the list resources, but I would advise you that if you go on our website, samin.org, we try to post as many resources as they become available. You can visit samin.org for a list of resources. Samin also has a helpline, so people can reach out to us via email, text, or phone if they have questions or need help. When people call helpline, Samin team members offers emotional support, guidance, education about mental illness and available treatment. We try to help refer them to a culturally competent care provider. There is a directory of South Asian providers on our website. You can find somebody from the South Asian culture. We offer free support groups, which are currently virtual. And one group is for anyone who has lost a loved one to suicide. We have another Desi women support group, divorce support group. You can find details on our website. There are many books available. And again, you can see that on the website. I'll name a couple of them. One is You Need Help. It's a great book, very basic about helping you understand how to help your loved one who's having mental illness. Or Surviving Schizophrenia, a Family Manual by E. Fuller Torrey. And the third one is I'm Not Sick, I Don't Need Help by Javier Amador. These are great books. There are many movies, both Hollywood and Bollywood, that address the issues, not perfectly, but do address them. Some of the websites are samin.org, Medline Plus, SAMHSA, which is a government website, very valuable resource, samhsa.gov. And for anybody in crisis or suicide thoughts, calling Suicide Prevention Lifeline they have 24-hour, 7 days a week support available, well-trained counselors. It's 1-800-273-8255. With that, I'll conclude and then invite questions and I'd like to hear your experiences on this subject.
Thank you so much, Dr. Makicha. That was a fantastic conversation. When we first logged in, I thought you were sitting in my home because I have the same background as you do, with the same bookcase and everything in the background. So, wait a minute.
Yeah, I
so-
see that. That's really interesting. Yeah.
We do have a couple of questions, and they're in the chat. So I'm going to start reading the first one for you. Let's see. It says, how commonly have you seen mental health issues among medical students / residents / attending?
Can you just repeat that? I lost the audio for a second in between. Sorry about that.
I'm sorry. No, that's it. I'm sorry. It says, how commonly have you seen mental health issues among medical students, residents, or attending physicians in our community? And then a second question is, how reluctant are they to seek help due to community stigma, as well as stigma from fellow physicians / the medical system?
This whole idea about physicians, for example, physician mental illness and physician suicide is actually a specialty, and some people specialize in that. Michael Myers is one of the experts in that field. He has done tremendous work in that. But yes, it is common. The residents have tremendous pressures on them of training, and also in their personal lives, and not getting enough sleep. So yes, I don't have the statistics about how common it is, but it is common. And in our community, whether they accept treatment or not, I think the younger generation, I think, is more likely to accept the idea of treatment, especially if they are in a program that is sensitive to that. They will be like, if you're in a psychiatric program, the program director often they recommend getting psychiatric treatment or psychotherapy as a part of the training, actually. And especially if you have symptoms, they're certainly encouraged to see somebody.
And then the second question is, I love this question. Mayor asks, what are some good practices or daily practices, or in general practices, that you use with yourself and those in your life to maintain good mental health?
Me personally?
Yep.
Okay. Well, one is some of the practices that I talked about during my talk, and some of those which I was critical, but I also practice. The yoga, meditation, breathing exercises, pranayam, exercise, reading, music. Those are some of the things that I use to de-stress myself. Stress is inherent in our lives. We cannot avoid it. The only time you can avoid it is before you're born or after you're dead. They're as certain as taxes. So we have to have ways of de-stressing ourselves, relaxing ourselves. And this is not just doing one time and it's done. It's a daily process, because every day, a crap is thrown on us in our lives. So we have to be able to learn to cope with it on a daily basis. I hope that answers the question.
I think that does, yeah. And Mayor, feel free to chime in. Is there a particular kind of meditation that you recommend that helps?
I'm not an expert on meditation, and I would refer you to, there are a lot of other experts, many organizations that offer that on a formal basis, early meditation, more advanced meditations, and I would encourage you to pursue that. And I know the research has also shown that it really helps with relaxation and functioning better. So yeah, I would encourage you, I would point you in that direction. So I would not be the right person to give you advice on what type of meditation, honestly.
Got it. No problem. There was another question. And again, everyone in the audience, feel free to type in all of your questions in the chat. We're open for as many questions as you have. There was one more question that came through email, and this was from Lavanya, and it says, my question to Dr. Makicha is whether US-raised South Asian American adults are more likely to feel less stigma and seek therapy compared to Indian immigrants who came here as adults.
Actually, intuitively, if you think about it, you would think that that is accurate. And I don't think there is any formal studies on that. The closest was we did a survey about 4 years ago in New Jersey to understand that. And what we interestingly found was the younger people had more stigma issues. So I was kind of surprised. And it was not a well-designed study, but it was just a survey that we did, a project we took on the streets of New Jersey. And this is what we found, you know. But conventionally, I would think that people who are born here, raised here, would have less stigma and more acceptance of treatment. But remember, those who are born in this country, Indians who are born in this country, remember, they are also influenced by the families that are raising them. So they're not growing up in a vacuum. So that has to have some influence on them, how they perceive and how they deal with the mental illness. And of course, also their own developed inner biases that they develop for whatever reasons. So will also influence that.
Yeah, interesting. Let's see, a couple more questions that just came up. So Shruti Patel says, thank you for addressing an incredibly important topic. Can you offer resources for South Asian family support and counseling for a relative with personality disorders?
I mean, personality disorders can be, you know, very difficult, you know, and affect the family like any other psychiatric disorders. So for that also, it could be any other resources that I mentioned earlier for other psychiatric disorders. There are no special resources for personality disorders. Personality disorder may also be associated with other disorders that are not personality, but they result in other disorders like depression, anxiety, you know. So you can go on summon.org. And as I mentioned, you know, or other two resources that I can mention to you while answering this question is American Psychiatric Association website. It's called psychiatry.org. And another one is American Psychological Association website, apa.org, also will offer some resources. MedlinePlus.gov is, I think MedlinePlus.org is also another good website.
Okay, yeah, those are great resources. And then another question from Sunita is, what is your opinion on doctors like Dr. Kelly Brogan, who advocate getting off of psychiatric medications? And also there's a study by Dr. Courtney Harding from Boston University.
Well, there are some who have advocated that. There are books written on that. I'm not an advocate of that. I live with the reality for the last 40 years of treating psychiatric patients and have seen the devastating consequences of stopping medications when they are needed. Now, if the medications are not used judiciously, they can be harmful. They can cause damage. Medication is not for everybody, not for every situations, but when it's needed, it should be used judiciously.
Okay.
I'm not familiar specifically with this particular author that she's talking about, but I would be very cautious. There are people who have done research and who have written their opinion about stopping medications. They've been very strong advocates of stopping medications, but I would be very cautious in readily adopting these without full understanding of the consequences and implications of this.
Okay. And then Aditi has a question. She asks, what advice do you have for supporting a family member who suffers from depression and anxiety, but are reluctant to get treatment and use meds for it?
So that's from Aditi. Aditi, for you, that particular book that I mentioned, you should buy that today. It's called You Need Help by Mark Comrade, Komrad. It's a small book, easy to read, and very engaging, and gives you great tips on exactly that will answer your question and will guide you.
Okay. And then, okay, so Mayor has another question. He says, we need to normalize the practice of exercising our mental health, just like we focus on daily physical health. The accessibility of mental health remedies has increased, but the utilization, the use of it is lagging. What are your thoughts on utilizing these resources, such as apps where you can just chat with a licensed therapist, some objective and external to our lives, to simply talk about your life, even if you don't have clinically definable mental health issues?
You know, I've tried to, after having practiced for 40 years, before the technology came in, and I've tried to learn to use the technology and try to keep up with the technology. And I can tell you that recently there is an explosion of apps available for just that. And in fact, there have been research lately on this particular subject, and there are apps recommended. So if you, I don't have it on top of my head, but if you can email it to me at info@summon.org, I'll be happy to send you some information on that. There are definitely many apps, and it is being studied, and there are recommendations being made on this particular thing.
And if anyone wants to reach out to you, is that the best way to reach out to you? info@summon.org?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, if they need to reach me there, if they need some help, they need to talk to one of our team members, the question, they can also reach out to helpline number, but they can certainly write info@summon.org.
Okay, and everyone that's looking for that email, I just put that in the Q&A. I mean, in the chat, so you'll have that available for you. So I have a question. Let's say there's a kid who went to their parents. You kind of mentioned this through your talk, a little scenario. A kid who went to their parents that's saying that I have some sort of mental health issue and, you know, some sort of depression, something going on with me, and they're like, you know, like one of the reasons, like, hey, just go back to work, focus on your studies, or they just give something and kind of push it aside. So now parents are not open to having that conversation. What is available for that kid? Where can they go? What else can they do? What other ideas can we give them so that they still have the help? Maybe it's not from their parents.
It's good that you mentioned that. In fact, I'm working with some youth on this particular thing to try to form some kind of a youth group to include these youth in empowering them and guiding them how they can approach. And we are also trying to educate parents, and this platform that you have today is certainly very helpful to get that message across to the parents and the youth so they can be heard. So it is so important because, and the scenario that I gave in my talk, this is not hypothetical. These are actual cases. These are actual people that have told me.
Okay.
And in fact, one of the volunteers in our organization experienced that, and in fact, she's going to spearhead this initiative for us. So if you want to keep up with it, know when that group launches, you can sign up for our newsletter so we can inform you. You get notified when we launch that youth group.
Yeah. Okay, great. Does anybody have any other questions? I don't see any more in the chat. So if you don't have any more questions, then thank you so much, Dr. Makhija. That was a fantastic, go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to make a final pitch that people who are watching, I would like you to try to sign up for the newsletter and also sign up for our blogs. We have some useful information in our blog articles that you might find useful. And of course, like us on social media, follow us on social media. That's helpful to get our word across. I think the more, the greater our reach, the more people we can help. So yeah. Thank you for this opportunity today. I thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. All right,
Bye-bye.
So next we have Mrinal Gokhale. She is the author of a book called Saya Unveiled, and essentially it's a South Asian spotlight, a South Asian mental health spotlight. She has a couple stories that she'd like to share. Essentially, these are some of the mental health stories that are in the community. And one of the things that we're trying to do is, hey, let's share our stories with people. Let's allow them to know that let's normalize these stories. So I'd like to bring on Reno to share her story, please. You're on mute, Reno.
Hello.
There we go. I hear you.
Hi, Varun. Thank you very much for having me. So I guess that I'll start by I'll share a little bit about my story and then I'll share a little bit about my book. You may need to help me out a little bit here because I didn't exactly prepare much for this first. Okay, so the title of my book is Saya Unveiled, South Asian Mental Health Spotlighted, and it shares 11 true stories of South Asian second-generation immigrants who have a mental health journey to share. And it explores the stigma a lot and kind of the generation gaps between first and second generation South Asians in terms of common mental health experiences and things such as resistance to seeking treatment. And what I found so far is that it has promoted intergenerational healing. And what I meant by that is I've had several family members and friends of ours reach out to me and say that once they read my book, that it taught them a lot about what Indians in my generation go through in terms of things like pressure and that kind of stuff, and also have more of an understanding of mental health as a whole and the treatments that go with it. So a little bit about me. So my story is that I believe that anxiety disorders and neurodevelopmental disorders run in my family. So when it comes to me, I didn't visit a therapist until I was a college student, yet I struggled both socially and academically throughout childhood and in high school. And what I mean by that is, number one, I had really bad social anxiety and therefore couldn't make the friendships that I so badly craved. That's to sum it up. And academically speaking, I was a smart kid. I graduated with a 3.3 B plus A minus GPA, thanks to the immense help of my family, but the learning style didn't work for me in school. And what I meant by that is I would constantly get in trouble in school for things like missing instructions, not following directions, being a little messy and disorganized, scoring well in subjects that I had an interest in, but just barely passing the others. So if some of you have a healthcare background, I'll just throw out the word, I think executive function struggles. So like I said, if you guys work in healthcare, you might know what that is. That kind of goes with the thing that I talked about difficulty following instructions and that kind of stuff. So my parents really did care a lot, and these things bothered them just as much as they bothered me, but they just lacked the knowledge on what to do in order to best help me outside of the household, if that makes sense. And I'm not trying to blame or villainize anyone, but at the same time, I do want to be honest. So my brother is autistic. He was diagnosed as a baby, didn't speak whatsoever until age 3. My parents sought all of these support services for him, from speech therapy to sound therapy to buying self-help books on how to parent a special needs child. And ironically, I didn't get any of those things. And I think that that's kind of illustrative of, so we've talked a lot about, I think it's well known that in our community, mental health is, people with mental health challenges are labeled crazy or weak in some way. But I think that my story is more illustrative of how another big problem is the failure to see mental health as a spectrum that we're all on. I think in a nutshell, my stories then are how mental health became my fight. It became the story of how I kind of took things into my own hands and took advantage of my university's psychological services clinic when I went to college. And after that, I even did a 3-year stint on psychiatric medicines, which my family would not approve of, but I still chose to do anyways. And I have no regrets about it whatsoever. And I think that in my situation, basically my brother's story, I think my brother's situation was a bit of a learning curve for my family. And that's why it might have felt better for them to feel that because I appear fine, then that must be the case, and that anything that I struggle with can be solved inside of the household. So, so I think that one of the biggest stigmas that I seek to eliminate is the ideology that mental health should only be treated if it gets to a severe point. I think that my quality of life was reduced before treatment, even though I may appear high functioning. I think that, and then also in my book, I strive to illustrate I strive to illustrate the fact that mental health is on a spectrum by interviewing a variety of people with a variety of conditions, with a variety of severity levels. And what I mean by that is that, most of the people in my book dealt with anxiety or depression, which doesn't surprise me. However, not everyone saw a therapist for it. Not everyone used medication for it. Not everyone had a diagnosis on the record just because they saw a therapist. So what I'm hoping to teach people through that is that you don't have to be suffering from like psychosis or something to benefit from a therapist, or in some cases, even medication. And I think that in my journey, another thing that I learned is that I view both Eastern and Western medicine as equals. And what I mean by that is I feel that they both have their place, different places for different people, and that you just kind of got to be open to experimenting with different ones to find the one that is right for you specifically. And I'm a big advocate for any person in here or otherwise doing what they need to do to get themselves well again, as long as what they're doing is safe, ethical, and legal. That's it in a nutshell.
So I had a question for you. You mentioned you used your services at the college, the psychological services. What was, that was your first time going to a therapy. So how was it for you going to the therapist for the first time, utilizing these services? What were you going through at that time?
So I wasn't even particularly looking for a therapist. And so I feel like when I was younger, I might have kind of brought up some of my issues to my family just casually, but then it got dismissed as something I can work on by myself. But how I got involved in the college's clinic is that I was just walking in the student union one day, and someone came to me, and someone by like a table said, "Do you want to take a free depression screening?" And I was like, "Sure." And without really knowing what I was getting myself into. And so then through that screening, he was like, "You show a lot of markers for having an anxiety disorder." And he was like, "We have student clinicians here that are supervised by ones with PhDs who are working towards getting a graduate degree in this and that, kind of as a practicum. And you can try working with one for just $5 a session if you want." And then, so that's not a lot to lose. So I decided, sure, why not? So I think that in the intake sessions, it felt good to really let things out, to talk about some things about my past and things that I struggle with, and how I feel that anxiety is really holding me back and how I don't want it to anymore. I think it felt good not to be judged. It felt good not to have my concerns dismissed or labeled weak, or being told that I just need to put myself out there more or something like that. So, and then after that, me and a clinician worked together for an entire year. And through our work together, they had a very strategic way of measuring my progress. So basically, I got cognitive behavioral therapy, exposure therapy, basically, to teach me how to conquer my social anxiety and to better initiate contact with other people. So what they did is they gave me an evaluation starting out, and then my social phobia was considered quote unquote severe based on what the evaluation showed at the beginning. And then at the end of our year working together, it was mild to moderate, and it's never exceeded that since.
Wow. Okay. So you definitely noticed a huge benefit from going to therapy and, seeing a therapist.
Right. And now that you mentioned that, I also want to talk about medicine now. So 5 years later, I guess long story short, 5 years later, I go back to therapy, and this is where this therapist is, since she had like a degree, she could kind of analyze my issues a little bit more in a deeper level. And that's who introduced me to the concept of having, of neurodivergence, of executive functioning issues that I had. And when I was seeing her, I got laid. Let's say, long story short, I lost my job, and it took a big toll on my self-esteem, and I became a bit more avoidant. I started crying more. I started having difficulty getting out of bed, being tired, having more brain fog. And at some point during that, she had brought up the idea of starting medication. And how I felt when she said that is I wasn't happy about it. So what I mean, the reason being because I've seen people that I know take psychiatric medicine and not have good results, let's just say. And so therefore the idea of me going on it scared me. But at the same time, it kind of validated something that my instinct told me a long time ago in college. And that was that I needed it. And I remember specifically thinking a couple times in college, because things like studying for exams was an absolute nightmare, that, I think I need something to help me focus, but I never actually acted on that thought of mine. So so basically I see a psychiatrist and I get put on Wellbutrin, which is an antidepressant, which is used as an alternative to stimulant medications. And I stayed on it for 3 years. And long story short, just a few months into taking it, I got a new job, and I was blowing my boss out of the water with the speed and quality of my work. And family members and friends alike were commenting, saying that I became more focused, more alert, more interactive. And I started to notice that difference too. And the reason that I noticed that difference was because I could go into social situations with more ease. I think that my social anxiety had me developing a very avoidant attitude about socializing. I would have a lot of attitudes like, what's the point of going on that party, going on that job interview, going on that date, whatever else, if I'm just awkward and shy and too socially deficient for it to be able to make a difference or have a good time. But then with medicine, that boosted my motivation. The feel-good chemicals in my